Longtime fans of the channel know that I love a generalist battle mech. In nature, the species that avoid becoming hyper-specialized tend to survive rapid changes in their environment. The creatures that can only eat the leaves from a single tree in a single climate zone are more uniquely at risk than the omnivore that can live on meat, scavenged roots, and Cool Ranch Doritos. Today, we're going to dig into the 60-ton Quickdraw, which is one of those original 3025 TRO battle mechs that has always struggled to escape the shadow of other heavy mechs like the Rifleman, Dragon, and Catapult. I'm not sure it deserves to be forgotten, and I hope that by the end of today's shenanigans, you'll agree with me. But let's not dawdle. Once you've hit the like and subscribe button, we can get into the fray. Go ahead. The rest of the class can wait. Alright, now that the paperwork is out of the way, the Quickdraw is go. Let's get into it. Alright Agnar, let's move in. Target the assassin and trebuchet first. I don't want these guys to have the advantage in either speed or range. Ryan pressed down on the foot pedals of his Quickdraw, engaging the mech's jump jets. The force of the launch pressed him into the command couch and drove the worn pads of his neurohelmet into his shoulders. The mech cleared the hill he was concealed behind, and Ryan guided the machine to land on the crest. As he tracked downward, he keyed the crosshairs of his Delta Dart long-range missile pack onto the trebuchet. When the crosshairs pulsed red, the pirate let fly with a volley. The battle had begun. Unholy Union, Counterattack, Battlecore Anthology by Chris Husey. Unlike many of its peers, the QKD-4G Quickdraw wasn't born into the relative peace created by the monolithic Star League. Though far removed from the final collapse of the Ameris Empire on Terra, the financiers of Technocron Manufacturing knew that there would still be plenty of opportunity for mankind to go to war. The future of the Star League was in doubt, and the great houses of the Inner Sphere needed to prepare. By the time Kerensky's Grand Army was clearing out the last of the Rimworld's resistance on Terra and the surrounding systems in 2779, Quickdraws were marching off the assembly lines, ready for distribution. The intent for this new 60-ton design was to create a workhorse generalist that could function in a wide variety of environments and mission profiles. Crafted from a Technocron Type E chassis wrapped around a Vlar 300 fusion engine, the Quickdraw could live up to its name with a top speed of 86 km per hour. Faster than many of its heavy-class peers, mobility and agility had to factor in how the mech was used in a fight. That agility was further improved through the installation of Chilton 460 jump jets, which allowed the Quickdraw to leap up to 150 meters on plumes of plasma and spite. In addition to the improved speed and agility, the leg assembly for the Quickdraw was designed around a unique circular rotor housing which allowed the battle mech to steady itself and hold footing even on incredibly uneven and unstable terrain. It was reported that the Quickdraw could retain its footing on surfaces up to 12 degrees steeper than any other heavy battle mech. Not too shabby, right? With a 585 movement profile, 13 single heat sinks, and 8 tons of Reese 475 plate armor, the Quickdraw was in a pretty good place. For comparison, in armor coverage, the 60-ton Dragon 1N was protected by 10 tons of plate, and the LNC 2501 Lancelot carried 9.5 tons. This placed the Quickdraw firmly in the lighter side of the scale for armor, which had to be in mind for both mech warriors and supply officers. Technocron's gamble was that the mobility and firepower of the mech could offset the concern over durability. Opportunity cost spares no one, my friends. Since I conveniently brought it up, the 4G's weapons loadout fit the 3025 TRO template of a little bit of everything, though there is a twist. Starting with long range, a Delta Dart long-range missile 10 rack was built into the left torso and fed from a single ton of ammunition next to the launcher. This would have to serve as the primary punch until the Quickdraw could close in on a target to bring its 4 Omicron 4000 medium lasers into play, along with one HoverTech short-range missile 4 rack. 2 of the lasers were split between the arms, and the other 2 were installed into the right torso facing the rear firing arc. While normally this kind of setup is somewhat disadvantageous, the Technocron engineers had an ace up their sleeve. The Quickdraw's arm actuators were engineered to actually allow for flipping into the rear firing arc, similar to designs like the Rifleman and Jägermech. While quite a few of the early battlemech designs from the era had 1 or 2 rear-facing weapons, few could brag about having 4 medium lasers worth of Kentucky Fried Enemy to dish out. The SRM-4 in the center torso fed from a single ton of ammunition in the right torso, which provided some additional options should you feel the need to try out some exotic ways to remove your problems from existence. Overall, the loadout was definitely geared for short-range squabbles, ideally with a mech smaller and not as well armed as the Quickdraw. It's always more fun when your opponent is smaller and weaker, right? Write that down, kids. Movement was rough, as the howling winds would shift direction at any moment, and the sheets of snow and ice were constantly lashing his mech. He moved slowly, his Quickdraw's weight making him harder to knock over. The cockpit was warmer than outside, but the lethal storm outside made it still feel chilly. He had to monitor the snow and ice accumulation on his chassis, as the extra weight could hamper his movement and make his mech top-heavy and prone to toppling over. The Spectre of Winter, Tales of the Inner Sphere, by Craig A. Reed, Jr. Most of the Quickdraw 4Gs were funneled into the Draconis Combine mustard soldiery, though eventually Arian Technologies of XTRO would license it for production within the Free Worlds League. The reception for the mech was mixed. Some lauded the versatility of the design, while others criticized the vulnerable ammunition stores behind thin plates of armor. Additionally, the specially designed ankle actuator assembly turned out to be an Achilles heel for the battlemech. Savvy mech warriors noticed that it was possible to hit the Quickdraw's foot and cause critical damage that would render the mech significantly slowed or disabled completely in a poorly timed fall. When in close combat, mech warriors and Quickdraws had to be careful that their opponent didn't go for a quick foot stomping to end the battle quickly. At least the mech still had the ability to shoot in the rear firing arc in a situation where it had to hobble its way through a battle. The other major complaint from reports was the heat curve, though unless the rear-facing lasers were being used frequently, it really wasn't that much worse than many other Succession Wars-era battlemechs. One just had to be careful when jump jetting and alpha striking. That's a sometimes treat. As the Succession Wars kicked off, then dragged on, and on, and on, the Quickdraw proved itself useful enough for continued production both within the Draconis Combine and the Free Worlds League. By the War of 3039, the mech could be found pretty much everywhere. Even the Capellans ended up fielding a few in their more outside-the-box units that didn't rely upon domestically produced battlemechs exclusively. His Quickdraw took a step forward, away from the wall, unloading precious missiles and laser blasts into the Hell's Horse's Timberwolf. As each missile from his SRM rack and some of his LRM rack exploded against the Timberwolf, all Katie could think about was how expensive that ammo was, even as one of the Timberwolf's missile racks exploded and one of its legs came off. And then she cursed herself again. Arky was out there all by himself. The doors were about to close, and he was still trying to keep them all safe. The cost of ammo should have been the last thing on her mind. Lone Wolf and Fox, by Brian Young. As the Succession Wars ground on, the fact that new Quickdraws were being produced and sold pretty well led to greater opportunities for field refits and variants. The first to hit the scene was the QKD-4H in 2847. This refit did what many mech warriors of the original 4G probably wished they could do with the original loadout by turning the 2 rear-facing medium lasers in the right torso around to face the front. To compensate for the lack of rear-facing firepower, the center torso SRM-4 was turned to face the back. I know, this is getting a little silly. Running and gunning with the 4 medium lasers only resulted in 1 net heat, so that 4H was surprisingly viable in a close-range squabble. Things could get warm quickly if jump jetting or if you are far enough away to add the LRM-10 into the mix. Firing toward the rear with the SRM-4 and the 2 arm-mounted lasers on the arms didn't break into the red. If you're not a fan of the LRM-10 in its entirety, I have some good news because in 3002 the QKD-5A was spotted, which did away with the long-range weapon in favor of 2 additional medium lasers and 4 additional heat sinks. The rest of the mech was stock from the original, resulting in a quick draw that was quite dangerous should it survive the journey into short range with a target. The two right torso medium lasers remained facing the rear firing arc, and the SRM-4 in the center torso could be added to the forward fire. A full forward alpha strike while on the run was actually heat neutral thanks to the 17 single heat sinks. It's interesting that in the 3039 TRO there's criticism that the Quickdraw 5A ran too hot. That has to be referencing a situation where the mech is firing the two rear-facing medium lasers along with all the others. It wouldn't be a common situation, but theoretically if you're firing on two targets, one of which is behind you, you have bigger concerns going than a 6+ into the red the next turn. The right torso's SRM ammunition remains a threat to the durability of the mech, but at least the LRM ammunition is gone. Life without case can be wild and unexpectedly short. Before we trot down the timeline any further, there was a notable story of lances of quickdraws and riflemen who were deployed as fire support for the Regulan Hussars on Nova Roma during the Marik Civil War. The massed assault of the Anton-aligned Hussars marched on a primary base held by the 9th Marik Militia, which understandably didn't feel like giving it up. Believing that reinforcements were on their way in system, the 9th Marik went on the offensive, pushing hard against the Hussars, who had to rely upon fire support to wear down the attackers at range. The Quickdraws earned their keep by emptying their LRM ammunition bins before pushing forward to hold the line. Ultimately, the reinforcements turned out to be units from Wolf's Dragoons, under contract with Anton Marik, who completed the assault and forced the 9th Marik Militia to stand down and surrender. Series view screen auto-blanked for a moment to take away the harsh glare of the explosion. When her view came back, she saw the smoldering pile of twisted metal that was once a dervish. Laser light burned through Ciri's center torso, vaporizing some of the heavy armor there. Caught by surprise, she only belatedly realized the Quickdraw had two rear-firing lasers. The enemy mech jumped to flank the Blackjack. Tomas ignited his own jets, and the two behemoths nearly collided. The Quickdraw pivoted in midair and fired both forward medium lasers at the passing Blackjack. No easy feat, even for a veteran. Playing with Giants, Shrapnel number 19, by Kingsley Montgomery. By the 3040s, Technocron Manufacturing was looking at the feasibility of a Quickdraw upgrade using recently rediscovered Starleague technology. After much back and forth, settled upon QKD-5M began to stomp off the assembly lines on Savannah in 3049. Though the 5M retained the standard structure and engine, the 13 heatsinks were upgraded to the double-strength variety in hope of finally solving any lingering heat issues. To bolster the armor, 8 tons of Callan FWL special ferrofibrous armor was used, which boosted the armor coverage to 143 points. It was almost a 12% increase in the mech's armor without any additional tonnage. The weapons loadout was surprisingly restrained, without any strange ER large laser additions or streak missile launchers. Instead, the only changes from the original 4G loadout were the addition of case for the left torso to protect the LRM ammunition and the removal of the standard SRM-4. In its place, a one-shot SRM-4 was installed, which offered a one-time surprise for an enemy that wandered too close. The end result was a Quickdraw that ran very cool, was slightly better armored, but at the cost of offensive power with the loss of the standard SRM-4. Apparently, it was worth it, as over the next few years, the 5M gradually replaced the older 4G models. Those 4Gs tended to end up in Merc units and out in the periphery. Not to be outdone, Luthien Armor Works developed their own updated Quickdraw designated the QKD-5K, which debuted in 3049. The 5K also upgraded the 8 tons of armor to ferrofibrous and used double heatsinks, but boosted the total number to 17. The 5K's weapons consisted of 6 standard medium lasers, 1 in each arm and 2 in each side torso. The 2 lasers in the right torso faced that rear-firing arc out of tradition. Finally, the SRM-4 was back in the center torso, fed by its 1 ton of ammunition in the right torso. No case this time. You may have already been doing the math in your head, and if you're wondering, yes, 17 double heatsinks is a lot for this battle mech. Yes, theoretically, a full alpha strike after leaping the full 5 hexes would generate 26 heat, but that's still considerably short of the 34 possible cooling for the 5K. I have a headcanon theory that due to a bureaucratic snafu, the Quickdraw 5K was given the double heatsinks that were originally intended for the Panther 10K. I can't prove it in court, but I think all the pieces fit. Being so wildly oversynced, one of the common field refits for the 5K was to turn the two rear-facing right torso medium lasers to face the front. It was time-intensive, but not technically challenging. The Quickdraw 5K is one of those variants that really bugs me because it's about 75% of the way to becoming a really solid brawler. Popping out a couple of double heatsinks to add case and 1.5 tons of additional armor could have made the machine a tougher brawler that could melt some faces. An additional sub-variant of the era was the QKD-C Quickdraw, which swapped out one of the rear-facing medium lasers from the 5K and exchanged it for a C3 computer set into the same location in the right torso. Otherwise, it's the same mech. I know there are literally dozens of you out there who are waiting for that C3 variant, so there you go. Now, if you thought we were finished with the 5K, you should have double-tapped it to be sure it stayed down, because in 3057, the QKD 5K2 was spotted, which mirrored the original except for the two rear-facing medium lasers, which were set to face forward, while the center torso SRM was set to face the rear firing arc. Now you can have it any way you want it. The only mech in the Comstar force that had not yet fired was the humanoid Quickdraw. Its weapons were well suited to fighting closer in, and it had finally closed to where it could fire effectively at the clan forces. It fired 4 medium lasers at the Turkina, but hit with only 3. 2 melted more armor from the mech's left leg, while the third slashed away armor sheets from the center of the mech's chest. Prince of Havoc by Michael A. Stackpole. In 3064, Luthien Armorworks decided to try again with their Quickdraw 8K model. It benefited from endosteel, 12 double heatsinks, and 8.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor. The classic 585 movement profile was also preserved. The 8K's loadout was a nod toward the original with 4 ER medium lasers split between the arms and 2 set into the left torso. All faced the front firing arc. The medium-range Missile 30 rack in the right torso provided a hefty, if less accurate punch, and was fed by 2 tons of case-protected ammunition. Is it still a Quickdraw if there isn't at least one weapon facing the rear firing arc? Do the arms still count? The 8K's 12 double heatsinks were sure to get a workout due to the 10 heat generated by the MRM launcher and the 5 heat per ER medium laser. How you decide to divvy up your time and heat is up to you, but holding off on one of the medium lasers while firing everything else on the run left the mech at 3 heat, so it's all quite manageable. The verdict on the 8K might boil down to how much you enjoy gambling on the MRM-30. Let me know in a comment what you think about it. Back to the nonsense, and boy is there some with the next attempt at building a better Quickdraw. It resulted in quite possibly the most absurd inner sphere quasi-Omni-mech in history. Earthworks Incorporated took on the challenge in 3073 to update the Quickdraw with a variety of new tech. Apparently, someone must have misread the directive because it appears like they tried to cram in all of the new technology instead of just some. Starting with an endosteel frame wrapped around a traditional 300 fusion engine, the Quickdraw 8X had a pretty good start. The 12 single heatsinks don't raise any serious red flags, but that is the last of the traditional structural elements. First, the use of triple-strength Myomer encouraged the Mechwarrior to run the mech hot and take advantage of the Myomer's properties. Next, the compact gyro bought critical locations in exchange for greater mass, and 12 tons of stealth armor provided 192 points of protection along with its electronic warfare properties. The wacky antics continued with the decision to move the cockpit down into the torso in order to make room in the head for a turret-mounted particle projection cannon. Because at this point they were just adding things to add them, target acquisition gear was installed into the mech's head along with the Guardian ECM in the right torso and a lift hoist in the left torso. Why? Because why not? Stop asking questions and just get excited for the next product. No, more seriously, the lift hoist is going to be useful later on. The 2 rear-facing standard medium lasers in the right torso were a nod to the past, but at this point this walking monstrosity only barely registers as a Quickdraw. Now you might be thinking, Mechfrog, this is absurd, but at least it's over. Oh, how wrong you are, because the poor man's Omni-Mech aspect of this design came into play with a series of handheld weapons options to supplement the mech's mission. They ranged from bigger weapon systems like an LB-10X autocannon and an LRM-20 launcher, to shorter range packages including one that contained 3 Streak SRM-4s and another that sported 5 machine guns and a vehicular flamer. They're up on the screen, but I'm not going to get into them all because they kind of make my head hurt. Pause the video if you're into that sort of abuse. The lift hoist was used to lift the weapons packages into place in the mech's hands, which theoretically allowed for swaps in the middle of a battle. Though staying near them for the swap out as well as protecting the lift hoist from damage limited how useful the Eadeh could be in a wide variety of possible scenarios where the standard battle mech might just excel without the absurd cost and effort. The design team at Earthworks went through the effort of retrofitting combat vehicles for the express purpose of lugging around the weapons packages, but that only added to the project's mission creep. When questioned about the PPC placement in the head, the design team explained that it was avoiding the limitation of not being able to use any torso-mounted weaponry at the same time that a handheld weapon was fired. While technically it did work, more and more people asked why any of this was better than a more traditional alternative. Not surprisingly, the 8X Quickdraw did not make it up to production right away. Eventually, a derivative form of it would see production as the 8P, but we'll get to that in a bit. The 8X is a mess. It's over-engineered, and if any one of the number of complex systems doesn't run exactly as it needs to, you're just bricked. Meza fired the instant he had a lock. His missiles and lasers ripped into the Vulcan, the missiles destroying armor on both legs and the left arm, staggering it. 3 of the 4 lasers cut through the 40-ton mech's thin torso armor, slicing deep into the central torso. From the sudden bloom of heat around it, Meza could tell the Vulcan had lost most of its engine shielding. Meza pushed his quickdraw into a run, angling away from the Vulcan as the pirate mech spun toward him and fired. Its medium laser missed, while a short burst of light autocannon rounds struck the quickdraw's left leg, cratering some armor, but doing little real damage. The Spectre of Winter, Tales of the Inner Sphere, by Craig A. Reed, Jr. Back to a more sane plan in 3070, which seems kind of silly considering how wacky the 3070s tend to be, a new Free Worlds League quickdraw hit the scene designated the QKD-5MR. This was a sub-variant of the 5M which had nearly the same hardware setup except for 1 fewer heatsinks. The weapon's loadout reflected a more advanced set of options, including 2 ER medium lasers split between the arms and a left torso-mounted LRM-10 launcher aided by an Artemis IV fire control system. The single ton of ammunition for the LRM launcher was set into the left torso along with case to protect the mech from catastrophic unplanned rapid disassembly events. 2 standard medium lasers remained in the right torso, predictably facing the rear firing arc. To improve the mech's aim with those lasers, a targeting computer was installed into the right torso, and the entire mech was given a new lease on life thanks to a Guardian ECM package in the left torso. What we're left with here in the Quickdraw 5MR is a remarkably useful and restrained upgrade to the original 5M. It's all the more useful, especially following that 8X debacle. Now that we've gone there, however, the 8X did make a return like a movie monster in the form of the QKD-8P Quickdraw, which shipped out in 3084 to Republic of the Sphere units. Earthworks never really gave up on the modular handheld weapon system idea, and eventually the 8X was reworked into a production model. The 8P retained the endosteel, engine, compact gyro, 12 single heatsinks, and triple-strength myomer, but it did sacrifice the stealth armor in favor of 12 tons of standard plate. The torso-mounted cockpit once again made room for a PPC turret and the mech's head along with tag. The 2 medium lasers from the 8X returned, but were flipped around to face the front firing arc. A Streak SRM-4 was set into the left torso along with 1 ton of ammunition, and the last permanent addition was a Guardian ECM in the right torso. The modular handheld weapons system was retained with the same options as the 8X, though there was no built-in lifter, so resupply had to be nearby. While the original intent was to sell the mech to the Word of Blake, would then in turn distribute it to militia units, by the time the mech was ready it was the Republic of the Sphere which ended up buying it. The 8P Quickdraws were most often found in frontline RAF units. How successful they were is an open historical question without ready evidence. Eris's Wraith rocked under the explosions of a half-dozen missiles. He counted himself lucky as nearly another dozen of the solid fuel projectiles chewed into the ground around him, and a flurry of medium laser fire passed by harmlessly. The Quickdraw and Crusader that had squared off against him both tried to backpedal out of optimum range while waiting for their weapons to cycle. Too late. Eris cut into the Quickdraw with his large pulse laser and both of his mediums, drawing molten lines across its barrel-like torso. Binding Force by Lauren L. Coleman. In 3086, a new Free Worlds League Quickdraw was spotted which once again tried to reinvent the mech. This time, endosteel was meshed around a 300 extra light fusion engine, 11 double heatsinks, and the whole package was wrapped in 10.5 tons of light ferrofibrous armor, which provided 178 points of protection. The much lighter engine allowed for the installation of heavier-hitting weaponry, including a pair of standard large lasers split between the arms that were aided by a right torso targeting computer. The LRM-15 in the left torso added some additional punch, and it did so consistently with 3 tons of Case 2 protected ammunition in the same side. Finally, target acquisition gear was added to the center torso so that the 9M could act as an artillery spotter. The 11 double heatsinks were adequate for rigorous use, but as with previous entries in the Quickdraw pantheon, overall damage output was lacking. While it is true that the 9M could act as more of a mid to long range skirmisher, it struggled to justify that expense of the XL engine. The newest Quickdraw in our timeline brings us back to Savannah in 3144, where the good people at Technocron Manufacturing have taken a crack at creating a new Quickdraw to revitalize their market share. The QKD-9G benefited from more than a few nice bells and whistles, so let's get into it. To shave off mass wherever possible, clan-grade endosteel was wrapped around a light 300 fusion engine and protected by 10 tons of ferrofibrous armor. 12 double heatsinks were installed along with both mask and a supercharger. This Quickdraw could use both speed-improving systems to push the mech up to a 5.13.5 movement profile in a clinch. This is a Quickdraw that has the zoomies. The weapons loadout is a nod to the original, with paired ER medium lasers split between the flipping arms and a pair of standard medium lasers set into the right torso facing that rear firing arc. A right torso targeting computer aided the aim of all 4 lasers and only weighed in at 1 ton. For close-range disagreements, a clan-spec Streak SRM-6 and 2 clan-spec Streak SRM-4s were added to the mech. The Streak SRM-6 fed from 1 ton of Case 2 protected ammunition in the left torso, and the 2 Streak SRM-4s shared a single ton also in the left side. The combined Streak SRM damage, if all 3 launchers achieved lock, was 28 damage in 2 damage chunks. Adding in the 2 more accurate ER medium lasers, and the overall damage potential rose to 38, which is fair. Heat generation was only a minor issue, as the front-facing Alpha Strike on the run wouldn't break the mech into the red. The ability to deliver consistent accurate fire without slowing stacks a lot of chips in the Quickdraw 9G's favor. It was a solid machine, and even the drawbacks of the light fusion engine were mitigated by plenty of crit buffer items in the side torsos. I can't find too much to fault in it besides making the fateful choice to turn the rear-facing medium lasers back around to face the front. If you have strong feelings about the Quickdraw 9G, please let me know. Flame blossomed from the Quickdraw's left breast. Missiles pummeled Lowry's Victor, shattering armor on the assault mech's legs and torso. She returned fire, hitting the round-headed machine in the chest with a Gauss slug. Lasers ripped up the rebel's left arm and opened a gash in his right leg. The Quickdraw gamely hung in for the fight, returning Lowry's fire, but only succeeding in scrubbing away some of the Victor's tough armor. Then a PPC blast nearly knocked the Victor off its feet. As Lowry fought to recover, a flight of missiles tore up the ground around her feet. Rocked by the near miss, the Victor fell to its knees. The Quickdraw pilot strode forward, raising his mech's clenched fists high above its head. Lowry struck out with her right arm Gauss rifle, jolting the Quickdraw to a stop with a punch to the belly. The Victor was jolted too, as its handless arm rammed full force into its 60-ton opponent. The Dying Time by Thomas S. Gressman. With all the refit and variant antics, I was inspired to take a crack at creating my very own non-canon and unofficial Quickdraw. The QKD 9G-MF was, as is hinted by the name, a subvariant of the most recently produced Quickdraw. The hardware remains largely unchanged except for the removal of mask, which bought a few tons for a more powerful loadout. The supercharger will have to do, my friends. With all else held the same, the primary weapons for the 9G-MF consisted of a plasma rifle set into the right arm and a pair of clan-spec medium pulse lasers split between both arms. The rifle is fed by 2 tons of ammunition stored in the right torso as crit padding. This setup creates the opportunity to hit targets in the rear arc with all 3 weapons. That would be a powerful slap on the wrist for anyone who forgets that the Quickdraw's arms can turn on you like 3-day-old takeout. Closing in on a target provides the MF the opportunity to unleash 3 clan-spec SRM4s in the front-facing arc. 2 sit in the left torso and 1 in the center torso. They feed from 2 tons of Case 2 protected ammunition in the left torso. For the totally free record sheet I've included in the video notes, I've gone ahead and set one of those tons to be Inferno rounds. You're welcome. The 9G-MF is fast, decently armored, and can hit quite hard in the mid and short range. Heat generation can be a challenge, but only if jumping the full distance and alpha striking at close range. For general purpose use, a running alpha strike leaves the mech at just 5 into the red, which is not horrific. If you'd like to give the MF variant a try, I've included the record sheet and an alpha strike card in the video notes below. Now get out there and melt some faces. At the beginning of the video, I cheered for the generalists. While the Quickdraw pushes the boundary of that distinction with an increased emphasis on speed and agility at the cost of armor, time and variance prove that it could be a frontline, useful at all ranges quality producer. While it can't survive long in the middle of the fray, a savvy Mechwarrior could make good use of its weapon systems to give better than it gets. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. I'm curious what you think about the Quickdraw. From the general Discord chatter this past week, it seems to be more popular than I thought it would be. Perhaps the latest Hired Steel episode had an impact on the BattleTech collective thought. Is there a Quickdraw that you think is the best in the timeline? Let me know in the comments and we'll keep the discussion going. As of last week, the channel has crossed over the entirely arbitrary and meaningless 30,000 subscriber mark, and I want to thank you for coming out and entertaining my nonsense. It feels like just a few days ago I was happy at reaching my 100th subscriber. I can't do this without your support, and I appreciate it. I do have to give a special shout out to Constantine from Hired Steel, who worked tirelessly and put up with my badgering to create the new cockpit layout for today's video. I hope you like it as much as I do. Thanks as always for coming out today. If you think the video deserves it and you want to show your support, the easiest way to do that is to hit the like button, subscribe, and even leave a comment. All of these things make the YouTube algorithm happy. If you want to go one step further, a direct support through Ko-fi or a YouTube channel membership are a great way to help ensure that the nonsense keeps flowing. If you'd like to join the nonsense on the Mechfrog Discord channel, we'd love to see you. I've included a link to the server in the video notes. It's really the best way to find out what's coming up next week, talk to BattleTech fans, share your awesome mech paint jobs, and otherwise hang out with some pretty awesome people. With that, I'll say have a great week, take care of yourself, and please go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.